high ceilings, like we put ladders on top of scaffolding, it's okay.
It's okay, it's fine, fine, don't worry about it.
All right, let's call this meeting of the planning commission to order. Just an over roll call. Dan?
Here.
Kelly?
Here.
Thompson Brewski is out. Bridget? Ben? Myself? Greg? Mike? And Tom?
Yeah.
And Bill's here. Item 2, public comments. Anybody guys in public comments, please stand up, state your name and address, and try to keep it to 2 or 3 minutes. There are no public comments, we'll move along. Item 3, consideration and approval of minutes.
I was gonna second it, but I don't have a copy of the minutes.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Did you have the supplemental meeting minutes in here? I thought I saw them in your email.
I was responsible for printing these.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't think they're in the packet, but I think they're electronically. Yes.
Doesn't look like the right agenda. Let's see, we've got Tech Joy, that's gotta be right.
No, I thought I sent her an updated agenda though. That's the point, that she printed off the old one.
Oh, well, I'm sure we could borrow their printer if we wanna make sure we got the right one. It's the one that says-
Oh, yeah.
And then you can throw the other minutes on there real quick too, if that makes sense.
Oh, no. We'll just do it next meeting.
Yeah, no big area.
I'll make a motion to approve the planning commission minutes from April 24, 2025.
Second.
As presented.
Any further discussion? All All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along, item 4, discussion and action items. Item A, review, discussion, and possible action of site plan of operations for the TechJoy LLC Information Technology Consulting Services out of an existing office building at West 229 South 8672 Big Bend Drive. Brandon Garabet, applicant, tax key BBV 2067953, owner Edgewood Plaza Property LLC. Doug Runge, property is zone B1, downtown business district. Ben?
Yeah, thank you. So you have here the applicant, are they here tonight? Are you, okay,
yeah.
there we go. So the applicant and owner here, so they're seeking recommendation on moving it, or actually approval to move in into this combination office building. I understand there's existing uses in there that are currently occupying the other uses that are using some of the parking stalls that are there. Looks like there's about 19 parking stalls. And so the Plan Commission will consider that in their consideration for tonight to see if there's any issues or concerns with that. It looks like they have 3 employees that would report to work and anticipate 1 customer at a time, generally consultant only, is what it sounds like. With the hours listed Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. The applicant indicates no company vehicles will be kept on site. There's no real exterior proposed as part of this project. So any future signage would have to conform to Big Bend standards, and you have to come forward for that signage change out. So depending on how the Plan Commission finds the request, I have provided staff language here, recommended language if you decide to approve it with conditions of approval. And the conditions would lock them into hours of operation. Again, any new signage would have to require review and approval by the village zoning administrator prior to any required building permit approvals. Plans approved by the Plan Commission tonight are approved for up to 12 months or until a building permit for occupancy is pulled. In other words, if you don't move in 12 months, you'd have to come back. So submit plans, the petitioner shall submit plans and receive approvals from the building inspector and the fire department prior to formal occupancy. And the petitioner and the owner shall satisfy comments and concerns of the village, Big Bend zoning administrator, the fire department, and the building inspector prior to occupancy. In other words, if they see something that needs to be corrected prior to occupancy, you'd have to take care of that. And then the final condition is the standard language talking about the time spent to review, process, and attend the meeting tonight shall be reimbursable to the petitioner and not the village. So they would be on the hook for that cost for petitioner review and approvals. Are there any questions of staff on this review? Or the applicant or the owner on the property?
I have just the one, if you don't mind. Have you guys also signed an agreement with the neighboring property regarding using their parking space, or was that just for the photography business?
This is a different location.
Oh my gosh, I
That's
altered
different.
the wrong.
Yep, so this one is here.
Kind of a corner, crossroad pizza and all that jazz.
Thank you, I'm so sorry.
Good question, no further.
There's no industrial
That's the next one.
southeast.
This spot is currently vacant, Doug?
Yeah, that was the photo studio prior. She moved out last month.
That's probably why my statement was even more.
Yeah, but it was
confusing.
kind of, it was sort of
Kind of applied, but not.
You're on good.
They also went in there, did a fire inspection, but they are doing some interior work and so forth and everything else. When they're completed, I will be back in there again, make a little inspection.
I'll make a motion to approve with staff notes 1 through 6.
Second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank you. Item 4B, review, discussion, and possible action of site plan of operations for Broke Motorsports vehicle storage out of an existing industrial building at West 224, South 8535 Industrial Drive, Building A, Unit 2. Brett Ethan Zilka, applicant, tax key BBV 2068033. Owner EEI Construction, Jamie Peterson. Property is known as I-1 Light Industrial District. Ben?
So this one might look familiar. Last month we had an applicant on here as well. That was for a photography studio. We ended up approving that one. This one's for one, I think it's next door maybe. This is for, and I understand what the applicant is here tonight to explain his usage, but it sounds like he's going to be renting out vehicles, storing them for rent. And if you have questions or concerns about that, he's here to address those. So the existing structure obviously is set up with leasable industrial garage space, each with individual access from the exterior via service door and overhead garage door. It looks like they're gonna paint the parking stalls in front of the service door, in front of the garage stall as well, it looks like. And the proposed vehicle storage use is a permitted use request in the I-1 Industrial District, following review and approval by the Planning Commission tonight, should you decide to approve of that. So it looks like the proposed employees' office hours, days, and times of operation are very limited. It looks like the applicant, they're anticipating majority of the in-person business would be conducted off-site, and this location would be used as mainly storage for the vehicles offered for lease or for rental. The hours he had listed here are Thursdays and Fridays from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturdays and Sundays from 8 to 4. It sounds like there'll be a little flexibility there too, as needed. The only proposed exterior change includes a business sticker on the door window. That's what it sounds like. So therefore, based on this, I know the engineer might have had a comment on that if you want to go ahead.
I bet you can't guess. It sounds like less of a concern to me, but the photography studio next door had an agreement with the neighboring property to be able to park on their facilities if necessary, but if you are only using it for temporary storage, then I don't think that agreement is necessary. So I'm gonna redact that one, if it's just him.
So following that, thank you. So I am offering 6 conditions of approval. The one would just be locking in the hours and days of the week. As we said before, number 2, no auto repair shall be permitted to be conducted out of the premises. I know the Planning Commission had said before, they don't want auto repair, servicing in that kind of, function based on what they advised earlier. The plans are approved for up to 12 months, so if you don't move in for whatever reason for 12 months, and you have to come back, start the process again. And number 4, the plans shall be submitted to the village building inspector, the fire department too, for your usage prior to receiving any occupancy. Number 5, you shall satisfy all comments and concerns of the zoning administrator, fire department, and the inspector. You just, not only do you submit the plans, you have to receive their final blessing, basically, final approvals before you'll get the permits. And number 6 is all costs are reimbursable for professional services in the review of your application. So those are the 6 conditions I'm offering up for consideration tonight.
Fire inspector has been completed.
Okay.
You need to put in an exit sign and also fire extinguishers in there. That was discussed with you and Paul. Good.
What were the hours of operation?
It will probably end up being more by appointment only,
Okay.
but definitely limited to probably Thursday and Friday, and mostly the weekend. I would anticipate the cars being rented more on weekends than during the weekday,
Okay.
but might end up being alternately like by appointment only.
Okay. Yeah, I saw the plan of operation had the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the occupancy application had Monday through Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, so I'm like trying to figure out which one it was. So.
Yeah, it'll be more towards the weekend and by appointment only, but very limited. I don't expect a lot of customers to be at that location.
And you're thinking a max of 3 to 5 cars
Yeah,
at a given time?
yeah, hopefully none, so they'll be rented, but yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan of operations for both motorsports vehicle storage.
I'll second.
Motion with the planner's recommendation.
Which plans are recommendation? Thank you.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Item 4C, review, discussion, and possible action on site plan of operations request for a commercial office building with dentist office as main tenant and other leasable spaces on northwest corner of Highway 164 and National Avenue on currently vacant property. Tax key BBV 2023-999-005. Owner Big Ben Venture LLC. Property is zoned B3 General Business District. The lot size is 7.65 acres. Ben.
All right, so if this looks familiar, and maybe not for our new plan commission member, but this came forward as a concept review. And so they gave some feedback, and they're back here tonight for the formal approvals for the site plan of operations, as well as, a lot of the construction documents, including architecture plans, landscaping plans, stormwater management plans. And I know the engineer has provided tonight a list of items for consideration as well. Did you get a copy of those?
I can give you one.
Maybe I would love one.
Yeah, for sure. So
So,
you got a little checklist of things I need.
Sure, thank you.
so I'm reviewing this. I understand 8,500 square feet for retail and 3,500 for dental office space is shown. They're connected. The buildings are positioned fronting along the western side of Highway 164 as in the concept plan, with the parking going to be on the other side, furthest from the road or behind the building between, so it would be out of sight. So it's single story, off-street parking stalls, they're providing for 71, including 3 handicap accessible. And the southern end of the property is undisturbed. The plan of operations, they specify, for reference, they advised me today that they're actually referring to the January plan of operations. They didn't supply a fresh set, but I printed those off from memory. So it looks like the standard business hours for the dental office, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. For consideration. Deliveries are expected to be minimal, standard office type, UPS, US mail, etc. They're expected to be contained on the premise on the west side of the building. Trash collection, they are providing for dumpster location, which does show like a dumpster corral or a screened view on the southwest side of the property, in the parking area there. And fire protection and human safety, it looks like it's not anticipated to be fire sprinkled. And I don't know have you had a chance to look at this?
No, I
those
haven't.
plans? Okay. It's brand new, basically, construction. So the parking lot access and configurations allows for a fire truck and medical vehicle access, it looks like. They do like a wheel path tracking.
Correct.
So it looks like a longer vehicle should be able to navigate the parking lot. You are providing for landscape islands in the middle, it looks like, right? And so they would have to go around those, during time of emergency. So building, sign design package is gonna be, they haven't submitted that yet, so that'll be determined later. As long as it meets our standards, I can sign off on it, or the building inspector. If there's questions about signage, it'll come back to you for the plan commission review. Construction schedule, it looks like you're still anticipating summer 2025, if everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, our client is hoping to be moved in February, so as soon as he can break ground, he's ready to go.
Very good. So as far as walking it through the code, I think you have my staff review there in front of you, unless you want me to go through it. the main points I wanted to point out again were the building. I think everybody was okay with the building style, right? Everything on the facade. It didn't contain any brick, but it sounds like you were okay with that then. Still okay with that now. Plan of operations, we just got that. I'm just walking through my staff summary here, the highlights. Parking access, I talked about that. We'll need, looks like Wisconsin DOT to sign off on any entrance and any improvements. I don't know where you're at in that process. Have you started anything yet, unless you're waiting for tonight and then moving forward?
There's just consideration for the possible need for an additional turn lane when you're coming off 164. Sometimes they're coming in kind of hot.
Yes.
So you
And I
can
believe the DOT is recommending that. We have had some initial discussions with them.
Wonderful. So we just like to have a copy of those plans on hand
Yep.
because those could affect your calculations as the rest of your site balance
Sure.
goes.
So I think parking, I'm not concerned with that. It looks like, unless the planning commission has concerns, it looks like they're meeting the benchmarks for that. Landscaping screening, landscaping, it looks like it does the job in terms of screening the views, but I understand in talking with the village engineer, there might be some questions about the landscaping on top of some of the design berming or
Sure.
grading.
Sure.
Do we want to, I can just jump to that real quick while we're talking about it. Basically, when you are having a bioretention pond like you do on the southeast corner of your lot,
Yep.
we don't want to put any trees on that. The woody growth is what they call it, so like large bushes also count. We're looking to not put any of that on a berm of a retention pond because it can cause some structural issues as far as soil compaction goes.
Sure.
So we just need to scoop those off of the berm. If they're on top, I'm absolutely fine with that, but based on what I could tell, they were coming down the slope a little bit, so
Yeah,
if you,
yeah, I
if
agree.
you resubmit that, that landscaping plan and can show the pond on there, that way I can approve you really quickly.
Yep.
Sorry, Ben, I interrupted your comments.
It's a good segue into that. The one thing about landscaping too is, I mean, kind of like we discussed with the other, we had a bigger site plan approval last month as well, I think it was. And so there is a clause in the ordinance here that talks about street trees. The applicant developer shall provide for the planting retention of street trees on both sides. It says new roadways, and it says, and where deemed appropriate by the plan commission for aesthetic purposes along roadways adjacent to the development. So in other words, they're providing, it looks like 4 bigger deciduous trees, 2 maples and 2 elm trees.
Yeah, that sounds
Over,
great.
what's that?
That sounds correct.
Yeah, over the stretch of about 1,000 feet, so they're a little deficient in that area, unless you're okay with their proposal of aligning it with shrubs as well, in addition to these 4 trees that they want to put in. Not in the right of way, but on the private side of the right of way. So it's up to Plan Commission to chime in. If you're not concerned about that, I mean, that's your prerogative, how you feel about, you know, your visioning your community going forward. If you want, well, maybe you're thinking about that, I can keep going, or? I don't have much else. I mean, they're hitting the benchmarks on a lot of stuff. Lighting, it looks like they had, I had asked for a lighting plan showing light intensity, 0.5 foot candles is our standard at the property lines, and light to be shielded. I didn't have the initial document. It was submitted at a different time previously, I guess, and I didn't catch it. But what they're saying is that all the pole heights are going to be at 20 feet tall, under the 28 feet we require. All lights look like they should be shielded.
Yeah.
They are providing for some bollards, it looks like, maybe along like some of the sidewalk areas. They just emit a little bit of a glow. I don't know if it's going to be super bright, you know, space shuttle light.
Yeah, they shouldn't be super bright. It's
Okay.
just typically just for ambiance in the evenings.
Okay,
And those are all on the back side of the building, so they won't be
on the parking side then.
correct.
Yeah. So I don't have any real concerns with that. And then the engineer's comments.
Yeah, I can give you a similar rundown. So I am seeing a lot of things I like, but basically what I'm looking at is some explanation as how your engineer got there. So the number one thing that I noticed is that we're still waiting on that wetland delineation. I know it's hard to get one of those guys out there, but given that it looks like your bioretention pond is discharging into that existing wetland, that's extremely crucial for me to recommend approval.
We do have that. We just got the field work completed
Okay.
And we saw the line, it's very similar to what the previous line was.
Yeah, I did not expect too much movement there, so that sounds good to me. Okay, so we can get that submitted. There's a few other small comments about things that will have to happen in the future, kind of my front half here as a heads up. You know, obviously you're not submitting as built at this point, but I like to keep you in the know. Another thing that I'd like to see is the USLE soil loss spreadsheet. All of your soil retention plans seem to look good. I think I requested that maybe we put some erosion protection bales on the swale on the west side as well. You have them listed on the east side, and there's a little tiny one that runs along the west side of the property.
Sure, that's part of the NOI, so yeah, we'll certainly have
Yeah.
that for you.
Yeah, and then one of my comments in here is send us the NOI.
Yeah.
Because the village does some inspection on those. They do, especially after it rains, we like to do after the half inch, we like that inspection to make sure that the village all of their projects are meeting their NOI as well. So the USLE will help with that. And then some connection details as far as well and septic goes. I see your well placement and I see your mound placement as well, but we just like to see how those connect into the building to make sure that we got everything we're looking for there. And then as far as the stormwater management goes, I'm looking for some calculations mostly. I can see from, are either of you an engineer? I'm sorry.
I'm with R.A. Smith. Jeff Wilson.
You're okay, great. Okay, so I see within your WinSlam that you have a lot of the slopes and sizes and all of that entered in correctly. It looks really good. It looks like you used all the right numbers. You're MSC 3, and I'm happy with that. We're good with 3 or 4. So the only things I'm looking for is kind of the calculations for your sizing, your spread on your inlets. The emergency spillway and the outlet structure are not pictured on the plans currently. So while it all looks good in your HydroCAD and it looks like things are flowing and you're barely using any infiltration, I would just like to see where they're posted.
Sure.
So that we can make sure that the emergency spillway is doing things right. The one other notable thing that I'll give us a highlight is it looks like you probably need to split your P1 drainage area, as there is drainage that is some that's going to the swale and that will then be let into the wetland as it typically was before the site was developed. But there's also some that's going towards I-164 that I want to make sure that we're not overloading their existing swale, especially if we're putting in a new turn lane. I want to see how we are rebuilding that swale or how we're conveying that water underneath the turn lane, just to make sure that we're not overloading their system by doing construction on ours.
Sure, and that intersection will change slightly based on what happens with that turn lane. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So once we kind of have to get a few more things in road, I think, to get that answer. But I can see that you guys are reading the ordinance and following what I need to see. I just want to see a little bit more of the detail of how we got there, so I can confirm, why we're making things certain sizes and putting them certain places. Does that feel
Sure.
okay?
Yep, not a problem.
Cool. Any questions from the commission on that? I know I just whipped through that kind of fast. I want to see their math.
I guess I do have a general question. So on the southern part, you're not touching right now. Is it going to be offered for sale later, do you think, or what are you going to do with that?
The owner does not have a solid plan. I think that he would like to see some sort of development there at some point in the future, whether he does that or whether he tries to sell off that portion. He doesn't have a concrete.
Do you know where access would come in?
We've had initial discussions with Jason over at the county on potentially trying to get a curb cut on National there across from the other. And it sounds like there's some potential there, but there's some details that have to be worked out. But I think they would hope, there's quite a big grade change, so we're trying to figure out if we can get a drive to run down.
And I bring that up because I didn't know if you're thinking cross-access agreement kind of situation where if you had to use that, the one drive.
Yeah,
I
and
didn't know.
there's some possibility of that, but with the wetlands there, that gets real messy, so I think our hope would be that we can get the second cut over on DS. So.
Yeah, especially if you flip your entrance, like you have your entrance all the way on one side for one property and then do the other for the opposite side, then you could give a little bit more spacing between those two if you have to do another similar turn lane thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I could see it, rather than the cut through, because wetlands, the DNR won't let you.
Yeah, we're gonna have to build a bridge over.
That's why I'm
it.
asking that question. I think that's a non-starter.
Yep.
No, good, get that,
Yep.
get that thought process started.
Yeah, I think he's got some ideas, but it's, you know, he's thinking probably a couple years down the road, but once he gets this settled and.
I didn't want him to have hope that he could do something like that, you know, I
Right,
just
right.
wanted to hear what your thoughts were.
Yeah, we've had some detailed discussions about what could and couldn't happen over there, so.
The only other thing I'll mention, and it's a minor issue, but it comes up more often than not, is mechanicals. I didn't know ground mechanicals looks like it's what we're gonna do. It just, those would have to be screened in some fashion. I don't know if those are, they're not depicted yet, because you probably don't know the locations yet, but,
Yeah, we've gotten, and obviously, we've done some work since the submittal was made, but
okay.
there's, the building is kind of split into the two masses, and there's this lower portion here.
Mhm.
This lower portion in the middle, we have a raised parapet, so any equipment should be going there, and that should be screened by the parapet wall in the center there, and then that should feed into both sides of the building.
Good idea.
Sounds nice.
So I guess as part of my review, you know, if you're inclined after what you heard, as far as, you know, the trees fronting onto 164, if you don't have any issues with that, you're okay with what they've advised, but the engineer and I are advising you, I'm offering 12 conditions of approval, and a couple of those basically will go away, because one of them was regarding submitting a light plan that I got today, this afternoon later, that I'm generally okay with, but I'll still keep it in there as a condition, just so I can double check, but otherwise, it's just a conversation between myself and the applicant then at that point to get everything squared away with the type of light, but otherwise, it doesn't look like a big deal. So yeah, the first condition, it's standard, you know, should not be full force effect until such time you obtain the approval and satisfy the comments, conditions, and concerns of the fire department regarding turnaround, access to the building, you know, any kind of stuff like that, the engineer, Public Works. I don't know if we've had conversations at Village Hall here with someone from Public Works or not, as far as,
Not that I'm aware of yet, but.
because the other thing too, I think we had briefly talked about sidewalks, you know, with any new development. I always bring this up as a planner, but I know at this location, I don't think the Plan Commission has any interest in providing for any sidewalks, because where do they go, you know? Nobody wants to be the first, so. I'm a planner, I have to say that. So number 2, the site plan shall follow the plans presented tonight, and then any changes will come to staff for review and finalization. Number 3, the site plan, landscaping plan, architecture plans, parking layout, surface areas containing 71 spaces, including 3 ADA stalls, are approved by the Plan Commission with the other conditions indicated. If you guys have anything, and us as staff will be expected to be corrected. Number 4, the conditions of the village engineer in a review letter submitted, which would be this, to the applicant regarding the site plan, stormwater management plan, associated documents, and grading plans shall be satisfied prior to going to a building permit. Number 4, the conditions of the highway department and/or Wisconsin DOT and all associated construction requirements for right-of-way improvements shall be satisfied per instructions from the village engineer and completed prior to final engineer inspection. Number 6, building construction plans shall be submitted to and approved by the building inspector and the fire chief prior to building occupancy. Number 7, a detailed lighting plan shall be submitted and approved by the village planner in accordance with 1623G. All parking stall, this is number 8, all parking stalls shall be of dimensions and striped and clearly marked, and any accessible signage shall be indicated and installed in accordance with section 16.16. Number 9, applicant shall submit a sign permit application and landscaping plan associated with the sign meeting section 16.18.13 and secure a sign permit prior to locating that and prior to occupancy. Number 10, any HVAC and mechanical units shall be screened from the surrounding view. There's some other language in there. Number 11, the approval is valid for 12 months again. If you don't start construction for whatever reason for 12 months, you have to come back. The standard condition number 12 is any fees incurred for the professional service staff on behalf of the Village Big Bend to review and, you know, answer questions and so forth to see this to completion shall be reimbursable to the Village of Big Bend.
I'd like to add a couple of things. Would you guys consider, well, Knox boxes for one, and the other thing, alarm system in there. would that be, would you do an alarm system to dispatch, which Waukesha County Dispatch, that lets us know if there's something wrong in there? Or would you wanna do an alarm system to your own personal phones, which you can do today? And then let us know that there's a problem in there. I would like to see that in there. Because I know the other buildings have not, but like Con Oil and so forth, they got that going there. And a few other newer buildings, but I would like to see that in there.
And I'll ask the architect maybe, like, is there something with code on something like that? Are you familiar with what he's asking for?
Vaguely.
Okay.
As far as an alarm system, I mean, I think we can certainly look into that. I believe that with our occupant type, I mean, we're not required to be sprinklered.
You're not doing, yeah, right. that's-
Yeah, construction type, but the square footage with the construction
Yeah.
type.
Yeah.
The fire alarm, I don't know the delineation, but there is one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know there is typically the fire alarm. I'd have to double check the code. I mean, obviously we'll comply with whatever requirements are in there.
That seems like it could fall under Ben's, must comply with the fire inspectors.
So we do have a kind of a catch-all condition, Jill, that kind of says, as long as you're happy with it prior to Jason Cromie issuing occupancy, that's the discussion that'll happen at that time, if the plan commission's okay with that.
Yeah, building inspector review for the permit should catch that too.
Well, not necessarily.
Not
No,
necessarily.
it doesn't, dude.
And typically the fire alarm plans are gonna come in from the design build contractor, and we can go get into the details of the specifics of it, but, I mean, we're happy to start pushing that discussion with them.
So it sounds like you're generally, agreeable to explore
Yeah.
that, talking about it, it's not a big expense, relatively speaking, in the grand.
No,
scheme.
absolutely, yeah, the fire alarm system, yeah, we can obviously work with, whatever we need to do to.
Not only that, it's for your safety too, or your safety of your building, your safetyness of your building.
Sure.
Common sense, I guess.
I like the way you think.
I like getting in trouble. And it always follows me, so there.
Ben, you said something about trees out front.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, as you said, if everybody could pull up the landscaping plan.
yeah. Let me go to the section here. it talks about.
The comment I want to make about that is that it's actually, it's a nice looking building. I don't think they have to throw a whole lot of trees up front, in my view anyway.
Oh, four trees, I think is sufficient
Yeah.
of that size.
Yeah.
And you can see they've got,
There's tons of plantings along
Right,
that,
yeah.
along the corridor there, so.
right, you wanna see the building.
Yeah, it looks like they're making a real effort to have, something that really catches the eye. It's not trash, that's for sure, so.
Yep.
Well, they're so close to the swale too. It's plantings they have.
Why, could you repeat that?
Just the way the trees would have to fit between the building and that swale.
Right, so, I mean, they do have the option of moving it backwards a little bit. I mean, they've got a little bit more room, or you can reshape that bioretention pond if you really wanted trees at that location. However, if there's a part where they're trying to squeak them in there between
Yeah.
the parking lot and the pond. So, I mean, there's options if you feel strongly about the trees being in that exact location. But also there's like perennials or different plantings you could do in that location, and then, you satisfy your other tree requirements elsewhere. I'm not great at approving plants, but Ben's nodding at me, so it looks like we're good.
I'm nodding because truly this is something for the plan commission to consider what you're hearing, so, I mean, if you like the ideas, what she's saying is, it sounds like you can shift them a little bit,
Yeah.
but if you like them, otherwise, if you feel like, hey, they can be removed and you're okay with that, it's really up to you guys. My job is to point it out that that's generally best practice, but if the plan commission feels strongly another way, you have the option to do that, it's kind of says so. So,
Just wanna make sure that pond lives a long, healthy life.
Mhm.
maybe they could keep 4 trees on the property, but maybe move them around somewhere else.
Yeah. I know it's tough when two different firms, you know, want two different things, or I'm not sure who did the landscaping
Yeah.
in state, yeah.
Third firm.
The third firm, oh
Third
my
firm.
goodness, yeah. Yeah, so if the landscaper could just get a shape of your pond on there, just so they know.
Yeah, 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 and he, like I said, he may have to make some adjustments and shift things a little bit.
Yeah. We can work through that.
Even by the septic area too, there's a tree
Yep.
that could impose on that long term, you gotta be careful of.
Agreed, agreed.
I think as long as there's some acknowledgement of that, of being safe for those two outliers, meaning the septic and the pond, I think, you know, there's some wiggle room there.
Maybe at the corner of the lot.
Agreed, yeah, if he wanted to keep them, just shift them over, we got some space over by the driveway there. Yeah,
So you can still keep the same number, just push them off
correct,
into that corner.
correct.
Safer spots, you know. Otherwise, I mean, there's a lot of landscaping, so it looks great. It's gonna dress up really nice.
Well, with that being said, I'll make a motion to approve with conditions, the plan for the building.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you guys.
Good luck, thanks.
It'll be a nice project.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so too.
I'm gonna pass a card to you. If you
Oh,
want to give me a
great.
call, I'm out tomorrow, but anytime next week or
Okay.
after that, we could chat and work through these.
Yep, perfect,
Sounds
thank you.
good, thank you.
Moving along to item 4D, discussion, consideration, and feedback on concept plan request for a proposed new residential subdivision resulting in 15 lots at .70 plus acres in size each, 30,000 square feet.
I think he's enjoying sitting over there for some reason.
Is the
On the
app-
north side,
did it for months.
on the north side of Henneberry Avenue, approximately 500 feet west of Oak Ridge, on currently vacant property, tax key BBV 2112998-004, owner Elvin Bordeaux. The lot size is approximately 13.1 acres, and the property is zoned R3, single-family residential.
So I'll introduce it, kind of walk you through it. I know Dan is here tonight to kind of walk us through what his thoughts are on this. And I know the engineers had a chance to review this. And have you seen her comments yet or not yet?
Yes.
Okay, you have them in hand? Okay. So I did have conversations with Bridget and Will Hine as well before tonight's meeting. So I'll just start off with the basics here. So it looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, so it looks like there's going to be 14 additional resulting lots out of the blank areas, right?
Correct.
So we have an existing right-of-way that was established, it looks like, on a previous document in 1977, thereabouts. And the back history is, it seems like the owner and the family were trying to set themselves up with multiple home sites years ago. But the family, for whatever reason, decided not to live next to one another, as all good families do. And so you have a right-of-way that's actually platted and recorded, so it's existing. So you have village right-of-way that's non-taxable land. However, in theory, somebody could place a public roadway in this area, granted they meet certain standards that the village has. So jumping into it a little bit here, so just zoning wise, it's looking like 14 lots, each having approximately 120 feet of frontage. They vary a little bit. Again, this is concept, but it looks like the various depths ranging from, the acreage is from about just under 3/4 of an acre to just over an acre sized lots. That's what it looks like, sort of for well separate considerations. One lot actually looks like it would utilize an existing 20-foot wide access point on the western edge. This one's kind of where the existing driveway is today on the west side of the 3 existing homes that front on Henneberry Avenue. There's a long meandering driveway that accesses about 3 homes, or 4. And so that's interesting in its own right, because I couldn't find any real documentation of how that was approved in that fashion.
The realtor sent it to me, so
Yeah.
I forwarded it to you guys.
And I think I talked to the realtor about this before you were interested in this, and I had a few conversations.
He sent me a pencil whip,
Okay,
something.
very good.
There's only 3 homes on that back there.
There's 4 lots, but
There's
there's
4 lots,
lots.
only 3 homes.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the old Bardoka.
Yeah.
And it looks like the village standards do call out, like if you have 4 or more, that triggers a need for kind of establishing a better beefed up road. My hunch is maybe that's why it was never built. So what he's proposing to do is put these new lots off the existing right of way, and allow that lot to just go by itself and be one lot. And so the other issue with this, I wanted to point out to everybody, it's affected by wetland areas, hydric soils, very wet in this area. So any kind of considerations, he would have to do some due diligence before it gets to the preliminary plat phase. So the Big Bend has a requirement, section 16.32, talks about a setback of 10 feet from wetlands, which is interesting, but in the village, that's really reduced. But they do have that in the ordinance here. So staff would note there's a high water table. Basements would be very limited or possibly not possible due to this fact as well, very hydric soils. The applicant's encouraged to perform any necessary tests in consultation with the village engineer to ensure that the proper stormwater management measures are accommodated. And again, this is conceptual, so going into this, you would have to investigate this a little more. And I gave you kind of a bulleted list here of some items to consider. I don't know if you want me to. The one thing I did mention too, we would require a cul-de-sac pursuant to section 9.11 would need to be established as at the terminus to provide for emergency vehicle turnaround and also large truck and general traffic turnaround area. Trash trucks, yep. So I think that's really all I had and I wanted to point out. There's a few other items in here I'm not mentioning, but if you want me to go through it, I can. The engineer has provided some information as well.
Yeah, I just tried to dig up what I could. Seems like a very interesting history site. So Will Hine, I talked to him again to get a little more advice. He said he worked with this property before for the owner, so I was like hoping that he could provide some insight. But what he wanted me to reiterate is that the hydraulic soils, the only concern that we have with those is the possibility of septic systems requiring a little bit more effort. It's not necessarily saying that you can't build on them, it's that there would be some additional challenges. So we would like to highly recommend some soil borings to see what you're actually working with. And delineation, I don't know, like one of our earlier applicants today, the delineations don't move a lot, but technically it's not valid anymore. So that's my warning for that. Let's see, I'm gonna go back to my list. Soil, cul-de-sac. And we have experienced some higher groundwater elevation in the area, as well as when we had Ripplebrook East and West, just below Henneberry, just south of Henneberry. We also had a flood analysis done for that location to provide some extra assurance if you were selling these homes off, being so low. That's something that some developers do. We couldn't find anywhere where the Big Bend required it, but we just wanted to let you know that your neighbors were looking into that. Anything else? Yeah, and then I go through some of the typical things that we'd expect from an applicant moving forward. You know, I really want to help you and give you more advice. The best I can do at this point is the lot sizes look great and I can really see your vision. However, I have some concerns with just looking up and finding what I could on the internet for this. I recommend getting some more information.
Yeah, I have a wetland delineation company that I'm talking to, and they're booked out 4 weeks. I suppose June 9th, so they will be scheduled on it right after that.
I'm talking to my surveying engineer company on it right now, because plan on putting in the road, putting in a detention pond, retention pond, whichever you two decide on that one. And I did the concentric circles on the land, and it all flows downhill towards Henneberry, so Russell Brook West to the south of it is actually even lower than this land, and they don't have ponds in there. So
I guess I'm a little bit confused about that, because I've definitely approved ponds down there, and I've been out there, and maybe we're not understanding
I
each
looked at
other.
GIS, and yeah, there's nothing there.
The ponds can be a part of somebody's lot.
Yeah, we've been looking on the maps, on overlays, everything.
I can show you a little bit what it looks like, but what they have is those, the two cul-de-sacs kind of come together, and then in between those two, they have a swale that leads back into a pond. But something that I've seen before is, especially since you have wetlands on your site, I kind of already know without looking too much what a low point is. So there are retention opportunities for like engineered bioretention ponds, which just means scoop out a little bit more dirt, put some rock and some engineered soil on top, and that way that it drains a little bit better. And then as long as you're hitting your removal marks and it was already discharging towards the wetland, you could kind of do your thing and let it keep going where it was.
Cool. Yeah, because I already have that in the plans anyway, to have over half-acre pond out there.
Yes. That seems like a reasonable size for your situation. I mean,
Sure.
without knowing too much, it looks reasonable.
Yeah, it's 0.58 acres that I've plotted out on here, so, okay, good.
And I will add, I just noticed this, but when I'm looking at the southern end, where it first comes in off Henneberry on the west, it's the second, the third lot in. I'm not sure those meet, the 120 feet lot width standards. I mean, that'd be something to consider too, like if it doesn't meet that, you might have to consider maybe merging them together or
They
somehow.
do everything that I redrew to even down to the 14 plots is at least 120.
Is it? Okay. And I just see the 100.77 dimension, that's what I'm looking at.
And then you got the driveway right
Yeah.
next to it, and on the back part of the property is 126 feet.
When I'm looking at the one that's, that fronts on the new right-of-way, it's the second lot in on the west side. It looks like 100.77. Might not see, am I looking at it wrong?
Yeah, because it's the one that.
That one, yeah.
So it's 120.62 on this rendering.
Hey,
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, you did
revamped
redo it.
them all.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I revamped them all to 120
Yeah, the
plus.
color one's a little bit newer.
Oh,
Yeah.
I apologize, yeah. Okay, I'm looking at the previous one that
Okay.
we talked about,
Yeah,
when you revamped it.
and I revamped it.
100.77, I see that.
Yeah, sorry.
This is a newer version.
Okay, I had the wrong one, I apologize.
Yeah, so I was going initially up all the original 100 feet.
But that's something when a preliminary plat comes in, we'll look at that a little more in depth, if he proceeds forward, and if he's willing to undertake the hydric soil. So, I mean, as the plan commission goes, I just wanted to point out that furthest west lot, as it comes off Henneberry, where that existing drive comes off, that lot is very questionable whether or not it meets today's standards. It could be argued that, if you're okay with that little sliver, that little trunk to provide for access for another single-family lot, I mean, the code basically gives the commission some ability, some leeway on that, if that makes sense. If there's one particular lot, and again, he's creating a new lot that technically wasn't there, even though it's an existing drive, serving the three properties and the vacant fourth lot, so that's kind of the question mark in my brain, as I'm kind of just, that was really my only real issue. But, and that's, when that comes through as a preliminary plat, I just wanted to point that out, that as staff, I'm looking for the plan commission a little bit on any, like, do you like it, do you not think it's appropriate, like, because he'd be back behind, the other three homes that are fronting onto there, so I mean, this is something right.
My plan on this is to subdivide, put in the road, put in the pond, and do all the surveying and all the work, but sell off the individual 14 plots, not actually build the houses, so.
Well, you would have the road in,
Yeah. Oh,
prior to selling lots.
no, at least gravel in, because when you're going to build new houses, you're not gonna want them driving on a brand new road anyway.
Yeah, so what we do for that is we typically require that you put down the first layer of asphalt, and so you do your binder course, because then you can have the road built and the trucks can get in and out easily. But when the majority of the houses are built, then we require you to pave the surface. We've had developers that do both, the binder and the surface, both layers of asphalt. So we require 5 inches thick in the village of Big Bend. So you do like your first 3 inches. We've had people do both and then have homeowners sign agreements saying that if their builders damage the roadway, I would like to advise against that and to recommend do the binder, put in your road as is, and pave the surface once most of the homes have been built. It saves money a lot in the long run, but I don't know, I can't think of an example of where we've allowed a gravel road. I mean, I've only seen a few developments in the village of Big Bend, so I might call on some of your knowledge, but I can't think of an example.
No, I don't think we've allowed any
The last gravel road you had was the extension on Industrial Drive. That was gravel for about 2 or 3 years, and
As
then they
far
found
as-
asphalt.
For construction, while they were building the edge of that,
Right.
okay. I'm not sure about that, Dan, can I look into that and get back to you?
Yes, please, because
Yes.
that road alone is 600,000 plus.
I believe it,
Without
so
selling
I
out
think
huge
it's once
plots.
50% of the homes are built, we could do the final.
you can do the top layer, which is the,
Yeah, which will be fine at that point, but.
Are you gonna get rid of that road on the west side then, going up to?
Yes, I told the realtor and the homeowner that I'm not gonna put the westmost plot on so they can still access that private drive until I get at least gravel in, that then they can be on the new public road. I know the Bordeaux family, so I've talked with them about it. I'm actually gifting 0.07 acres because there's a garage built onto the land, and then I did an additional 10 feet of easement for it, so like just a sliver gifting to them and trying to appease everybody that's existing back there, but yeah. I don't know what the cost on the road.
we could set up a call sometime next week if you'd like. I can tell you some numbers I've seen recently.
Well, the survey company just kind of 2.5 times my numbers and an asphalt road, being 18 inches deep with gravel and asphalt.
Yeah.
I was going based off of kind of an asphalt driveway being like $7 a square foot. He said it's like $300 to $400 a linear foot. So
For 22.
22, 24 foot wide road. Yeah.
Yeah, I get bids in from my projects and my coworkers' projects where I can see asphalt numbers change and fluctuate.
Okay.
So if we want to talk, maybe I can give you some advice, but you said 600,000, I'd say, wow, what a deal. Yeah.
Well, this is a 1,640 foot full length road going to the property line, and even if I pull the cul-de-sac back a couple 100 feet to the edge of, maybe like 100, 150 feet. I mean, regardless, yeah, 600,000 for 1,640 foot road.
I'm with you. We can talk more. I'll pull up some numbers.
Appreciate it.
For sure.
My biggest concern is that soil in that area, just knowing the area and it's been around for years and seeing the water sit and, again, whether or not basements would be feasible or not, if you can do it on grade, obviously that's a lot of people building a house nowadays around here still like to have a basement, but hey, it's one of those things if that's the limitation based on the soil test, then that's what you have to operate in, but that's why those tests are gonna be very important to understand that soil.
And Waukesha County is pretty graceful when they allow you to, do the higher end of the groundwater and implement a drain system where you just put about a 4 to 6 inch PVC, so that as long as it's running underneath your house from the high groundwater point, so it can get to the low groundwater point, guaranteeing that your basement, if it was a split level, or a walkout or something like that. There's options, but I don't know where it's at up there, so it's hard for me to say. You could definitely do that, but I've seen that happen in situations like yours. Choosing my words very carefully.
I talked to the survey company, and that's where he had me reach out to the wetland delineation company, and then he told me to contact a septic company directly to do all the perk tests.
Yeah.
So I'll do that for all the plots anyway, to kind of find out, so I can then sell it as like, hey, this has been done for you already, so.
That's
we know
It makes it
what's-
easier to close it,
Yeah.
it's not conditional.
Exactly.
So again, tonight, this is purely conceptual, offering feedback to Dan here, Mr. Majeski, so that he can understand, if this comes back to the preliminary plat from the commission and the village board, or two. I mean, that's where it goes. So for final approvals with the construction documents, so. And he's talking about possibly phasing that. That's really kind of a discussion with the board, but, planning commission can also chime in on that.
My plan mainly is that somebody buying a plot of land, they're not building a house day one. Like, it's still gonna take them a year, even a couple of years to get all their plans in. So that's where I kinda wanna sell off a couple plots to recoup some money to then build the road and pond and everything in there to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm trying to think if there's some way that we could do something like, you wouldn't be authorized to build, you could sell the lot, but you wouldn't be authorized to build anything? Is that something that's ever happened?
And I'm the licensed realtor, like, I'm the one that's gonna be selling these lots, so I can put anything into the verbiage of the sale of the lots.
I don't know. That's something I definitely want to research before I can give you an answer.
Good.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, the developers agreement with that.
Yeah.
I doubt that I'm gonna open up the Big Bend ordinance and say, well, don't you worry, Bridget, that has happened before. Yeah, I've spelled that out completely. It might be something that I'm gonna attempt to interpret from the ordinance, and then we'll have to discuss as a commission.
Well, once I own the land, maybe I'll get a better bank loan on it anyway then. So, that's fine.
Well, and as staff, we're just gonna walk it through the zoning ordinance and the subdivision design guidelines and ordinances too, and say, these are the standards, and then if there's a question from the applicant, it usually comes to the planning commission and then ultimately the board. So if there's anything questionable you might be seeing tonight, now's probably the time to say it to the applicant versus holding back and then coming up at a meeting later on, so. And obviously, we don't have all the information tonight, but a lot of question marks.
Bridget, on the Ripplebrook East, was there anything that was really, I don't remember anything there was a few things on developers agreements, but I don't think there was anything major with the wetland stuff.
No, I don't think so. I mean, most of that is handled by the NOI, and our developers agreement is like, says, don't break your NOI. But the Big Bend ordinance pretty closely follows what DNR requires as well, so I think that we're fairly covered there. I don't think that they had to jump through many hoops, though.
Right, that's what I don't recall. I know there was some stuff with, Naomi didn't like with the road, how they were planning certain things with some elevations, but that was about it. I don't recall there was anything like with wetlands that was a big issue. I don't know what the difference in grade is, because that's across the street.
Mm-hmm.
What your differences in grade are there.
That was my last map. Yeah, you can kind of see it.
It goes downhill because of the.
Yeah, it goes from 825 at the north part of the property down to 795, which is Henbury. So then Ripplebrook goes from 795 down to 785, so that's relatively flat. And it goes up a little bit hill on Ripplebrook to 815. So they're relatively flat to up a little bit. But mine goes all downhill from the north to the south.
And they're lower than you.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, yep, I mean, that's really all there is to this one. You can see the punch list that, that I've created that was kind of based off my preliminary conversations with the engineer, conversation I've had with him, of things that typically would come forward, and then Bridget's also provided her input. And a more formal application through a preliminary plat, it's more formal, and again, we'll do a more detailed analysis on the actual plans, but at this point, kind of hearing, you know, typically you'd enter the discussions of sidewalk connections and all that, but there's none of that in this area, so you don't really have to worry about that. You know, stormwater drainage considerations to the neighboring properties to the west. I don't think, you know, if there's any issues you guys have heard about from this property that you might need to address, that's typically the stuff you'd want to hear. But I don't think that's the case either, so based on how it sits today. So, yeah, that's why you have conceptual reviews come forward, is to help him out a little bit. So that way he makes a formal application, he at least kind of knows, you know, what you guys might say as far as like, you know, things like that above and beyond the typical review process. So, that's all I got.
It'll be a nice project if everything comes together.
Seeing as the Vernon one fell apart. So, yep. At least
Plus on the west side are a little bit higher than
Yeah.
aren't they?
It would help you out any.
West is higher.
I wasn't sure.
It's a good thing to think about because,
There's actually a hill on this one, I mean,
yeah,
You
the
can
back
have
there
all
all
that
the time.
stuff if you do it with an engine on the tank.
it kind of flows down this way and this way is the wetland.
Sure, you
So
know,
everything
big long
that
one.
you had to go
East
through.
end is
Yeah.
05,
On one
it's
side.
kind of Ripple.
But then you just have to move it.
Yeah.
Drip past it.
It's something to think
It
about.
doesn't look like much, it doesn't look like that much change
No, it
when you're
doesn't.
just standing there, but then you see it on a map, oh, I guess so.
That's why, you know, the residents are here tonight, you guys understand and have heard from a person or two, like, oh, I've heard from so-and-so, you know, about this or that, so.
Yeah.
so there's a pretty good hill on the first house.
Any other questions or comments?
Do you have any questions?
We'll keep plugging away.
Time to close June 9th and then surveys and wetland delineation gets in there and then I'll find out more at that point. Worst case, it's agricultural and like $75 a year taxed, so.
Wow.
So much better for the
Just throwing
village.
that out there.
Yeah, it'll be much better for the village after that. He's owned the land for 80 years
Yeah.
and he's 81.
He's tough to get, he's a tough one,
That's why Randy Bordeaux took me onto the land and then I dealt with the realtor mainly. So, but I talked to Elvin personally about it first, so.
No action there then? or
No, I don't think it requires
No,
action.
no action.
Just
Uh,
consultation?
if you want
Come back.
Good. Thanks, Dan.
Back to this side of the table.
All right, so we'll move on to,
what do you think?
That's actually my new business, Castle View LLC, that's run under, so. Eventually I'll build a castle when I find more land.
There you go.
Taking the name literally.
item 5, planners report for January, April.
Oh, that should be, yeah, just April. That'd be a long report.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Public hearing and special joint public. Special joint public hearing regarding height increases in B4 and I1 districts scheduled for June 5th at 6 PM prior to village board meeting at 7.
So this goes back to our special meeting we had on May 15, where the Plan Commission gave an informal recommendation on inclusions that yes, B4 should be increased to 45 feet and I1 district should be increased up to 60 feet based on input from, I talked with Bill Bronx, the fire department, and other entities around here, and they agreed that that would be okay. And so the ordinance has been drafted, the public notice is in the paper, scheduled to be in the paper next week, before the meeting. So notices are out there, the clerk is preparing everything, and we're headed towards a special public hearing on that. And this goes back to helping out the B4 district, the specific site plan we had reviewed back in April. So that's all I have.
Awesome, thank you. Item 6, fire inspector's report. Bill?
I really don't have any, except that we're doing inspections and everything is going fine.
Excellent. Anything from the building inspector?
I don't have anything.
Okay. I either. Item 8, engineer's report.
Everything I had was on the agenda, so I'm all good.
Outstanding. Any correspondence? Didn't have any. Next meeting day, Thursday, June 5th, 6:00 PM for a joint public hearing. After the joint public hearing, we will convene to recommend the board approval or not of the ordinance. And then we'll disperse. The following meeting is June 26th, regular meeting at 7 PM. Mike,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
And you okay?
What's that?
You need a minute,
No, I'm good. Thank you very much. You can add that to your collection.
Does everyone just recycle them? Do you have a folder? What do you do with them?
File cabinet, years back.
I sat on a kitchen counter for about 2 days.